Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 12 p.m. Agenda additions or approval. Councilor Stevens?
I would like to make two additions. One, a short in-camera session or a legal opinion that's sort of legal matter that just sort of came up.
Okay.
And then a representative from Buffalo Sands would like to speak to give the backstory on the signage that they're requesting. Kevin Maloney.
Mr. Chairman, will he be pulling in?
Yeah.
Okay. Just as long as we can make sure that we contact, nothing worse than having a seance. So he's not there.
Yeah, well, if when we get to 7.2, we can, I guess we can put it off if he hasn't, but
Okay.
proceed accordingly. And then the vet, was there any discussion on that fire stuff at this meeting, or did we?
I was gonna bring it forward to the March meeting and I'll get some information from Flagstaff.
Okay, good, then, thank you. Is there any other additions? Councilor Gender?
I'm just wondering, like Justin's when he's going to be doing a polar dip, whether he would like to kind of clarify on and kind of bring up what he's looking at doing there. That's all on his shoulders, whether he wishes or not.
Do the advertising.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean,
Think that's
you'll make that 6.2, yeah. How do I word that? No.
Just put polar dip. Polar dip fundraising.
You only hope it's like last week and not, or 2 weeks ago.
Well, that's 3 weeks ago.
I kind of feel like with the temperature of water, the ambient temperature won't matter anymore.
Other than you be frozen solid.
Okay, any other additions? Councilor Silver,
I will move the agenda with the additions.
all in favor? Carried. Councilor Grover's no.
No.
Okay. Okay, minute approval for the January 12th, 2022 regular council meeting was distributed.
Mr. Chairman, I'll give you a motion to accept those as distributed. I didn't see any error or omissions.
Thank you, Councilor Nyberg. Any questions on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. No public hearings today. We're at one delegation at 1 p.m. for Parkland Community Planning Services on the land use bylaw and the MDP reference. So council's request for information, 6.1, I brought in, it was for lagoon capacity. I just wanted to have a discussion, I'd asked the vet about putting it on here because I wanted to have a discussion in regards to us shutting down Red Willow Lagoon. And with us shutting it down until we have the proper drainage plan in place for it, just that we let some of the summer villages know, anybody that isn't county know, that if we end up with any issues at Erskine, that things could be changing very quickly. Because Erskine was our backup and now we're using our backup. So that was what I wanted to bring forward for that, was just the fact that we better bring the level of awareness up. So I don't know if we need a letter sent
Well,
to the
but we need to have a formal sit-down discussion with what's going on up there. Like this is, I mean, it's a problem that's not going away and it's going to get worse. And it has been exacerbated by the fact that we have had more and more development at the lake. And whether it's our side, their side, it doesn't matter. We have development at the lake. It's that simple. The lake is not the only place that we use as pump outs, but typically that is where the majority of that comes from. The Erskine Lagoon, and I mentioned earlier, some of you, I mean, I've driven by there and there's 3 trucks lined up to get into the Erskine Lagoon. I mean, maybe that's just timing, hit or miss, but on Sunday when I dropped off my garbage at the transfer site, there was a truck going in again. So in the matter of 3 days that I have been past there, I've seen 3 trucks. And 1 truck a day, let's say that extrapolates, that's 35 or 30 trucks getting into that lagoon. For $600 seems extremely cheap, in my opinion. And what is the cost for us to continue to maintain that? So, we need to look at, not only do we need to look at taxes, but we also have cost recovery of doing things that are not only county ratepayers, but some of our neighbors' ratepayers need to pay their way as well too. So going forward, we need to have a strong, definite consultation, and it needs to be an emergent one. This isn't something, I think Mr. Stevens has said it more than once. Erskine was our plan B. Now that we're in plan B, we have no backup.
What is on to Councilor Jen?
Part that really gets me on this in here, with the Red Willow Lagoon, there are not any direct lines into it. It was always pumped or trucked in. So once it is full, it's full. But with Erskine, if it is ever filled and if we cannot dump it out of there, all of Erskine is tied into that. How do we shut the sewer off from Erskine from getting into that lagoon if it ever come down to that? I do find it is very important that we have to address this very quickly, and there's going to have to be resolved. These lagoons, I don't mind sharing with our neighbors, but there does come a time that we have to look after our municipalities first. And the other, outside of our scope, if they're not willing to look at it, we've got to force the position onto them.
Councilor Stevens?
I agree that we need to address this with our partners as soon as possible. And is it administration that reaches out? Do we send a letter from all of council requesting a urgent issue meeting? What is the quickest way to get that happening?
Councillor Stevens, we could reach out and request a meeting. Does council have any available dates or dates that we can't book a meeting? Might be better.
Probably what we can do from there too, CO Casti, is just put a request out and pick one or two dates or take a look at calendar and work it from there.
Okay.
You know, because we did kind of think maybe possibly the town of Statler was plan B, but with their volumes right now, they indicated that they are in a plan B now, so it is in the Erskine now.
So would you just like us to invite the Summer Villages White Sands and Russian Sands Council? Do you want the town settler to come or no?
I don't think they're necessarily involved, other than we can, I mean, the administrator was at that meeting we were at for the Village of White Sands. Who's doing Roshan Sands? Same person?
Same person.
So their administration was at that. Their administration knows the situation, is very in tune to what's happening. So it's not like we're going to be able to.
The town meeting you're talking?
Yeah.
That was planning, like their administrator wasn't at that, their CEO wasn't at that meeting.
Who is the administrator for White?
Melissa is for both, Melissa B.
Did they have an independent CAO?
Oh, okay.
They're the types that would know.
Either way, so we have our, I had somebody else as their CEO, so she's just in their planning department.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, but either way, it'll be confirmed that that's the situation. It's not something that we are not going to tell them about. So they'll know that that's what's coming. It's not like it's going to be out of the blue. But we need to put our proverbial heads together and come up with a rock pile and solve this, because it's not going away. And it is emergent. Like, we need to do it sooner than later, because the only thing that's going to happen at the lake, we've already had requests to turn water on there. So they're coming back sooner. We're going to get more. Those 3 trucks, I'm thinking, are going to turn into 9, 10, 20 trucks, and we're going to be pushing the limits.
Me, Mr. Chairman, one of the items that I thought that we should talk to the Summer Villages about, especially after the meeting with the town, is the amount of sand that these trucks are bringing with them. So that obviously these tanks have got to have significant sand in them if it's blocking off their, right? So that's kind of scary, because.
And I'm not saying that's what happened with Erskine, but we had to dredge it, remember? And that was a huge cost. And then we talked about levying the people in Erskine, and then they said, that's not fair because yada yada.
Right.
Councilor Jenner?
I believe it is going to be very urgent that we are going to have to very much specify in there that if they don't respond to us by a certain time, that there will be a deadline, that we will just not allow any of their coming to be deposited into our lagoon.
run into issues, yeah. Anybody else? If not, if we can motion to get administration to do that.
As at the soonest possible, even if, and it may be an evening, so at the soonest possible.
Councilor Stevens?
I'll give you that motion to instruct administration to set up a urgent meeting with their neighbors at the Summer Village.
Any other questions, concerns? All in favor? Carried. 6.2, polar dip. Counselor Stevens.
Just like to clarify a few things. Myself and a handful of others are participating in a fundraiser. All proceeds are going to rescue equipment for the lake. This is important to me for a number of reasons. I've seen the shortfall for quite some time. I've seen that we've had to rely on private citizens to respond to emergencies. So a group of us have got together, have done this fundraiser. We're hoping that it will be successful. We've had a lot of positive feedback. And just so everyone's aware, this is being done on a volunteer basis. Everyone's just trying to better the community. And I would like to add that the Board of Trade has reached out that they would like to be a partner in this in the future. And they are hoping to expand this so that we have an annual event at the lake. And they're hoping to expand it into a fishing derby, and that perhaps a new cause could be chosen each year. So it is a positive thing for the community. We're adding services. We're adding potential for tourism, and it's a fun activity for all the family at no cost to the municipalities. Just wanted to clarify that.
Where do people line up to make a donation for anybody that's insane enough to step in?
You can make a donation to any of the 5 participants. You can also stop in at the Great Kitchen Shop on Main Street or at the County Admin Building. And tax receipts will be issued by the Stettler Volunteer Firefighters Association.
Counselor Gender?
Suppose you'd be looking for some challenges on there also?
You're more than welcome.
Old hard slot.
Quicker, Ernie.
I will pass on that one, but anyone out there, like if they're willing to take any challenges or see how it's really going on, by all means. Thank you very much, Justin.
Thank you. So, 7, new business, 7.1, request for decision, read the 2022 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Krista, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, so before you have the 2022 to 2025 budget. It is a 4-year budget, but once again, as I've stated, the only budget that we are looking at passing is the 22 budget. 23 to 25 budgets are strictly for planning purposes, so council's aware of what's going on in future projects. You'll also see that I've attached the 6-year capital budget as well as the cash flow, which are all requirements as well for the MGA. The budget was presented in the public budget survey, so I'm not going to go into great detail on it. But what I will say is that the county is proposing a balanced budget, and at the end of the cash flow, we are proposing a surplus of $2,624 for the 2022 budget.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Buck? Council Stewart?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2022 budget as presented.
Are there any questions on it?
I'd just like to make a comment. I'd like to thank staff. I know that this was probably the most difficult budget that I have sat on for sure, and there were some tough decisions to be made. And I just want to thank you for the hard work you did, and all department heads coming up with cost-saving measures to solve some of the issues that we're dealing with.
Any other comments or questions? Councilor Gender?
I also like to reiterate that I look at Public Works and what we had originally had started out with, and they come back and they chopped everything, what they possibly do. But then what they did is they went and then put it back onto our plates and said, okay, are you willing to live with this? And some of us kind of looked around and said, well, we'll put a little bit more money back into your pockets. Thank you very much for the dedication. Appreciate it.
If there is no other comments, we have a motion on the table. Councilor Stolberg, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, Krista. Do we have a call in yet?
Don't, and, pardon me, we don't, and then 7.3 as well would be our 1 o'clock delegation. So,
Okay.
So if we don't have that individual on, we could maybe skip it, and if somebody has contact with him, could try and reach out to him.
Try and get him to contact back, but if not, we'll cover it when we get to it, whether it's called in or not, then at that point.
Do you have contact, Mr. Stevens? I would just move on. Mr.
Yeah, we'll move on to 7.4, request for decision, Town of Stettler and County of Stettler intermunicipal development plan, development plan, engagement plan. I guess we have 2 plans on there, so.
So it should be the municipal development plan, 7.3 is the one you're on?
but it's the engagement plan for the intermunicipal development plan, 7.4.
And we need, so,
7.3 will be our 1 o'clock delegation.
yeah, but 7.4 we can carry to. Okay,
There you go.
7.4,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jacinta, did you want to speak to this?
Thank you.
that's page 53 of our package too.
I was on previous.
Willow Consulting has prepared a public engagement program for us to engage our public and get some feedback. They've proposed an online survey, and we're hoping to kickstart that on February 22nd. So they've compiled a survey and they've provided the questions, or we'll be getting a copy of just the theme of the survey, which we have in this document. Following that, we are going to be having 4 open houses. And if needed, we would also have some pop-up sessions in some local just cafes. She's Brenda Cafe, which is a central location. So we're just looking for direction on whether, and the total document is available on page 258 in your package.
Thank you, Jacinta. Councilor Nyberg?
So, public engagement, I've talked a lot about this in the past. We've never had a real great success with it, but maybe we need to change up. And I think, we're talking about a cafe style thing. Why not the Stettler auction market? I mean, on Tuesday, we have farmers in there on a regular basis from all over the county. The other one would be the farmers market in Stettler that is going, and I can't remember the exact date. They sometimes switch it around come spring and fall, but it's there's a number of small markets that are going on, and I think that may be a little bit more of a spot for our county community residents. I'm not saying, I'm not taking anything away from Brenda's Cafe. The town folk, that might be their go-to, but for us, let's try and meet the people where they're at.
Just to respond to that, that was just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, and I like the suggestion, because I think that's where we need to meet them at, but let's meet our people where our people are at.
Sure. And I just also wanted to point out the map on page 81, the confined feeding operations, the exclusion zones. We've added 2 quarter sections northeast of the town of Stettler and southwest. So we will be referring the new confined feeding operation or confined feeding exclusionary zones to those landowners within the next few days. And also the plan boundary may be extended to the CFO exclusion zone based on some recent conversation.
And if I could, Mr. Chairman, the discussion that was had during the meeting was, for those 2 especially, was that that seems to be the typical direction for our residential build out. both for the town and for us, going to the south of Stettler. So with that, there just thought there should be a little bit more protection going if we are going to go that route.
Any questions?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, where was this recorded at? I'm sorry. On the west side?
On the north
Left to
Oh,
26.
right there, oh, okay.
and southwest.
And then there were another two, yeah, right here.
I was gonna say, it looked like it was up there, yeah.
There's two sets of 2/4 sections.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Counselor Nyberg?
I'll give you a motion that we go ahead with that engagement. I think that with those, a couple of suggestions of trying to meet people where they're at.
If there are no other questions, call the motion. All in favor? Carried. Okay, 7.5, request for decision, water line hookup, page 82 of the package.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Randy, are you gonna speak? Randy's not here. Andrew, are you gonna speak to this?
Yes, I can speak to the water line hookup request. So let me just get to that page again. So we've got two requests. So the first one here is right off the line. Here's the map. So it's right off the line for the property, but the house is quite a ways back. So we'd be looking at, typically what our agreement says now is that we only go to the property line. And that's generally been the practice we've had for a few years now. Some of the original signups, we would go as far as 500 meters into the property line. But that's back when we had a lot more grant funding. So at this point, I'm looking for council's direction for if we were to move forward to do the $15,000 fee. And that would be at about a $10,000 cost to us. And then typically what we do is we do recommend the guys work with whoever we work with to get the line in the ground. We will give them the name and say, well, if you need to get a plumber and they'll be there kind of thing. And it's typically always a local contractor.
So do you have the larger map so that we can put this on a county? I'm just trying to figure out exactly, because we have prioritized a few places and I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, no, so there's no line that would need to be built for this. What we've strategically planned is where a new line would go into the ground. So this isn't in those areas, but because it's right on the line, it's one of those sort of standard requests we bring forward.
Okay,
And
so
it's up in 4019, so just a little bit off Highway 56, about 8 miles north of town.
and where I'm getting at is from that standpoint of if we prioritized for certain people, like this will not stop somebody else from getting it, is where I'm at on that.
That's right, because the sign-up fee will cover our costs.
But I mean, and even time-wise, like we only have a limited amount of resources for our people to do
Yeah.
their jobs. So that's not.
It's all contracted out.
Okay, so it's not a concern to us. Okay. I would,
Counselor Silver?
My comment is on the additional 500 meters into a property. I think we should follow with our current practice of putting the meter vault to the property line, and then inside the private property, it is the owner's personal responsibility. I think it's a lot cleaner that way. I mean, that's the practice we have been using for quite a few years now. And I know down my way, we've recently had a few more come on, and some of them have been in quite a ways, and there was no additional funding for that. That was the landowner's responsibility. And that money that you would spend on running it into private property, I think that'd be better spent to expanding rural lines so more people could benefit.
Counselor Gender?
On the financial, the second paragraph in there, they state that they have to possibly do some directional drilling. That road is not even a developed road. So they could open cut it right from the north side of the road right over onto the south side. So that just doesn't even come into the picture on.
Right.
And whoever they get for doing the installation on there, they could arrange it in order to take it at their cost right back down to wherever they can come in. So they should build it, well, do it for under the $10,000. That's it.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that, that cost is talking about if we did the 500 meters into his property. That's not talking about the line in the ground already, because that one's just open it up, put a meter vault in, do the fuses and done. There's no drilling or trenching to be done, per the motion on the table or Les's comments. I don't know if
It depends on whether the landowner wishes to directional
yeah,
drill.
that'll be up to them.
Okay, great, thank you.
Counselor Stevens?
Just for clarification, the price is for 500 feet, but he has to go 475 meters, correct?
We'll check the map. I keep saying 500 meters, but,
And
yeah, no, yeah. I think that's just an error in the RFD. Sorry. It would be, the 500 meters.
okay. I'm leaning towards if our policy states to the property line, then that's where we stick with. It's something that I hope the citizen would have been aware of when he was looking into this option. We just finished a very tough budget. It's not like we're flush with cash to do extras. And if we go, I guess I would be concerned about where would the cutoff point be if we gave an exception here. Are we willing to go 700, 800? Like it kind of opens us up. So I'm leaning towards sticking with the policy and getting it to property level.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
That we take it to the property line?
We'll take it to the property line, absolutely.
Counselor
At
Bennett?
that point, they can make a decision. It's now their choice. If they decide to go forward with it, it's theirs. We have said we'll do what we will do. After that, that's theirs. And it would probably, I dare say, still be cheaper than drilling a well at that particular property.
Counselor Bennett?
Difficulty.
Are we looking at both properties?
No, the other property is already hooked up there. That's on the map.
It's already hooked onto the water line?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just kind of wondering, to eliminate, say, like some external tap into that line, can we tap into, I guess it would probably only be a 1 inch off that 35 meter.
Yeah, there's no advantage to trying to wire split at the existing service connection. We want a dedicated service for each lot.
Dowling, et cetera. Okay, we have a motion on the table. Any other questions? Calling question, all in favor? Carried.
Mr. Chairman, we have that individual on the line. Maybe move back.
We will move back to 7.2. I see we have Kevin on the line. And it's Buffalo Sands entrance signage funding request. Kevin, we'll give you 5 minutes to talk about your sign once you're unmuted.
Do you want me to have Jacinta present it maybe?
Yes, I guess Jacinta could present it, then we'll allow him to talk, and I guess we should do introductions so Kevin knows who's in this room too. So starting with Nikki.
Nikki Thorstensen,
Director of Communications.
Andrew Bushik, Director of Municipal Services.
Larry Clark, Reeve.
Is that Cassidy, CAO?
Any gender?
Paul McKay,
Justin Stevens?
Stillwork by Miranda.
James Nyberg, Erskine South Warden.
Jacinta Donovan, Director of Planning Services.
Rick Green, Director of Operations. We have a member of the public here too, Doreen Mappin. Sorry, just had a mind blank there. Okay, and this is Kevin online, so if you can present, Jacinta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have received a request from the Buffalo Sands Community Association for funding assistance for signage that was recently installed at the entrance to their subdivision. The total cost of the sign was $5,984.38. And the cost was included engineering study for the structure of the sign and the material. So we do have a photo of the sign attached to the memo. And their funding, we could possibly retrieve it from the Buffalo Lake MR Reserve Fund. And there I presented the 3 options for council to consider.
Okay, thank you. We'll allow Kevin to speak on it and then we'll open it up to council for questions. So can you direct?
Hello, everybody. Kevin Maloney. I'm the president of the Buffalo Sands Community Association. I believe February of 2020, we did a walk through the community in effort to get a few issues that we needed repaired, paths and that sort of stuff that just fallen into disrepair. And at that time, we presented the idea of doing a new community sign because what we had previously had there was just the developer's sign for the community. And it was way out by the main road, and it was actually becoming quite dangerous. The wood had rotted out, and it was susceptible to wind damage. So at the time in 2020, we spoke with Jacinta and Justin's predecessor. As we walked through the community, we discussed doing a new sign and if there was funding available for it. At which time we were told that we'll put a request in and it would be taken to council for approval. So we spent some time within the community developing a new sign and logo and slogan for the community, which was one of our community members that's what he does. He's into marketing and that sort of thing, and developed the Buffalo Sands with the fonts, and we've included it on our website. And with the slogan "Lake Life and Play," there's multiple meanings within that. A, the lake. B, way of life, and finally play, which is what you tend to enjoy out at the lake, and then you can reword it any way you would like. Anyways, we've as a community, we put over 100 hours of volunteer into the construction of the sign, as well as like I said, the development of the new logo and slogan, and with effort to increase property values in our community, we put this sign in, and that's what we have. And we would like to see if there was possibility of some cooperation from the county.
Okay, well, thank you, Kevin. Is there questions from council back to Kevin or to Jacinta? Councilor Gender?
Was there, I'm just kind of wondering, was this brought forward to any city council before you built the sign and then just kind of sent us the bill?
Yes, I presented to Jacinta a plan, and she was to bring it to council and have it approved because it was because of its location. It was approved by council in, I believe it was the early part of 2020 or early part of 2021.
Okay, Councilor Gender and then Councilor Nyberg.
Just kind of wondered whether there was a dollar figure that was agreed upon in there.
I believe we came up with a budget of $5,000 of where we thought it would come in once we put some numbers together. That's sort of where we thought we would come in at.
Okay, Jacinta wanted to. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Jacinta.
Thank you. So yes, it was presented to the Municipal Planning Commission for approval because of its location on a municipal reserve. And as Kevin mentioned, that was last spring, I believe. So yes, it was approved, but the funding amount was just an estimate at the time, and it did not come to council for pre-approval before the construction. It's just.
Councilor Nyberg?
So Kevin, the planning commission, and I think you're fairly aware of it. I think in the past we've talked about this, but the planning commission is not council. What they do is planning, and they would have approved a project for construction. Municipal planning commission can't spend money. So there was maybe a little bit of miscommunication there. And also, there was some engineering issues originally around this one, correct? I think it went out and then it was maybe not in the right place. Is this the right sign I'm thinking about here, Rick? That you went out and had okay. So that is, and we got those solved, I hope, Kevin, yes?
Yeah, all the engineering was presented to Rick and he signed off on it.
Okay, good. And the only comment that I'd like to state is, and I see you did shop some stuff locally. I would have liked to see the whole thing shopped locally, but that's just my shop local brain going forward there. So financially, this is, I think, the first time the council's seen this as a financial request. And typically, we would put a budget in place and give you pre-approval, not post-approval. I'm not really keen on that because it opens up a Pandora's box and a can of worms. I know the community of Erskine put up 2 signs that they spent a fair amount of money on laser cutouts and on quite a nice sign and set up there. But I don't think they asked for any money for that either. That was done with funds that were raised from within the community's homecoming, I think, is where it came from. That's just my comments on it.
Councilor Stolberg?
Yeah, hi, Kevin. Yeah, no, I think the sign looks great. I think it's really awesome when communities take pride in their communities and want to do these sort of things. But also, I think typically most communities, they fund these community type signs through their own fundraising or donations or source grants and things. I know in my area, small hamlets have put up some nice signs, but it wasn't county funded. So I don't know if this would be precedent setting if we started funding community signs.
Councilor Stevens?
I was informed that Scenic Sands did something similar. They paid for their own sign. But I also feel that when community engagement tries to improve their communities, that we want to support them, that we want to assist them. And promoting that has value, because without getting that community engagement, these sorts of projects never happen. So for that reason, I would like to see a partial compensation. And that's what I'm leaning towards. We don't cover the whole bill after the fact, but in an effort to promote communities bettering their community, that we could do a portion from the municipal reserve.
Did you have your hand up, Councilor Gender?
I'll just wait for
I think in that effort, just to close out my motion, if we were to split it, say 1/4, 3/4, we would chip in 25%. They've already paid for it. They would cover the 3/4, and that would be my motion.
Councilor Member?
Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, I agree with what you're saying, Justin. I can't disagree with that. But unfortunately, where I see this is, and I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, good policy makes good governance. We don't have a policy on this. If the community of Erskine came and said that they wanted a $10,000 sign with lights and sirens on it and came in, and then we said, okay, well, precedent set that we did a 1/3, 2/3, they get, it's a $50,000 sign. Are we going to cut a check for $12,500 to cover that cost? I don't think this is the route we want to go down just yet. If we, as council, decide this is important, we take it to a policy and we build it and we farm it, and then it's treated, everybody is equal within our communities. Whether it be Botha, Gadsby, scenic sands at the lake, whether it be any lake properties that are out there. We have a number of small subdivisions out there. What if that community came to us and said, Carlisle Estates, for example, came in and said that they wanted to put a sign up and it was a $10,000 sign. Are we prepared to now put that money down and say that we're going to put in, you know, $25,000 or $2,500 to that sign? I don't know. I just said good policy is where I'm seeing this go, and have that discussion about what makes sense and what financially makes sense.
Councillor Stevens?
I appreciate that, and this deciding after the fact, I am leery about. Moving forward, I do support the idea of some fashion of policy where community groups from anywhere in the county had to come forward ahead of time. This deciding after the fact is a little bit backwards in my mind. So I do support your idea of coming with a policy so we can have this discussion before people have their hopes up.
Can I just point out that there was an estimate presented prior to the commencement of the sign? So it's not like it was you guys were blindsided or anything, and it's just a point I wanted to make there. And then on council about setting precedent, there's always the possibility of capping your input towards community signs at a dollar value as opposed to just the percentage of the final bill.
Kevin, though, sitting through those meetings before, I was just under the understanding we were given approval to put a sign up. It was going up. It was starting to go up before we even had the conversation. So I didn't really think that there was going to be any financial contribution, to be honest, at that time. So that's where I sat sitting as part of MPC and also part of the council member.
So again, Kevin, what I was getting at is with the MPC, every development that we do comes to us with a value to it. So if you're going to put a barn up or a house up, that development permit is asked for a estimate of the cost of that particular project. So we have a general idea of what it was. And that goes for anybody, whether it was G3 or whether it's somebody putting up a double car garage in Carlisle Estates. So that's a point on our form. It's not anything other than the Municipal Planning Commission understanding the sheer scope of a project, right?
Councillor Stolberg?
Yeah, I think my comments are going to echo Reeve Clark's and Councillor Nyberg's. When we seen this go through MPC, the amount in my mind was just for planning purposes, so you knew what kind of a scope you were dealing with. As and Councillor Nyberg said, all planning applications come in with an estimated amount. At no time had I ever thought that was a commitment to pay for that amount. I always thought it was for approving the development permit.
Councillor Gender?
Actually, Kevin, like when the first sign come up, I wasn't really sure whether it got moved, whether it was dismantled, what the future was really going to be of it. But I do see that you and your colleagues have put in a lot of time, effort into this. I would like to ask for an amendment to Mr. Stevens, that we go 50-50 on it and split the bill with you.
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment. Yeah.
For clarification, what reserve did you want to take out?
The South Shore.
That,
No, I'm not sure we can.
I'm not sure the policy allows us to do
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah, that's a public trust fund, so it has certain restrictions.
Could identify one of the recreation reserves?
I think Brett's staff recommendation is that, or Jacinta, did you not say that it was going to come out of the municipal
I was referring to the Buffalo Lake MR Reserve Fund.
Okay.
And
And I don't think the policy allows us to do that.
okay, well, I wasn't, yeah.
Yeah, and even beyond that, the MGA had strict requirements around public trust funds and it would take a bit of looking into it to see if that would even be eligible. So I think it might be more prudent.
Rural Development Fund would be the spot, I think, that if it was to coming out of somewhere, that's where it would become.
Yeah, we could take it out of the rural development fund or one of the recreation reserves. We've got 3 of them. Another point, though, I realize is kind of late in the game. I think this project would fit very nicely under the special project funding. Unfortunately, those applications are due the end of October, and then council, the board makes recommendations, and council solidifies them in December of this year. So that might be a little too late, but
That may have been the better spot to come out.
Councilor Gender?
I'd have to echo his link with the RDF. That'd be a great one to take it out of. There's an awful lot of development up there that gets put into that funding.
Councilor Stevens, that was a friendly amendment, back to you.
I'll accept that friendly amendment.
That would be 50-50, so
50/50 and out of the rural development. So administration is clear of where
Council would like us to take the money out of and how much they would like us to take out.
And we have an option, say like from the Buffalo Lake, and if not that, then the RDF.
we have to work on the policy on the Buffalo Lake MR Reserve. And it's also, yeah, Andrew's right. The MGA dictates exactly where those funds can be spent.
Councilor Silver?
I would just like a little clarification on the original motion. Was Councillor Stevens' motion for the county to cover 25% or 75%?
The original was 25. I accepted the friendly amendment.
More generous as the afternoon goes on, okay? We gotta hurry up and vote before we
We get the other things.
Postpone.
Was there somebody else?
No.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion on the table that we would, that billing committed, what, $5,200?
$984.
So it would be almost $2,500.
23,000.
John's 3,000. Yeah.
it's short, just $7 or $8
Yeah,
short.
for 3,000, okay. Okay, we have a question on the table. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor McKay, Clark, Spielberg, and Nyberg opposed, so defeated. Sorry. Kevin? That's how we voted, so
There would still potentially be the option and maybe get in touch with the vet to try and recover it through the recreation special project funding. That would be an application due in October. That would then have an award in December.
That's a little late in the game. I'm sorry, Ms. Mahoney, but I could work with you to try and get some funding from the special rec funding projects that we do in the fall.
That would be great. I'd appreciate it.
okay, thank you for calling in, Kevin.
Thank you for your time.
Welcome, Councilor Grover. Councilor McKay?
Can we put a motion on the table so we can get a policy in place for circumstances like this? Let administration brings back a policy or something in the future that we can look at and maybe put a cap on or whatever, so we don't fall into this again.
I think maybe our discussion on one of our other meetings that we could work through it to see where we stack it with the other policies we want brought forward.
Once we complete the audit, I am hoping to bring all the policies back again, and some new ones for council to review. But we could definitely look at something like this through maybe a recreation reserve policy where we could fund 50% of the total cost, or 75, or
So, Mr. Chairman, to make some clarity or give some clarity to this, Mr. McKay, if you'd like to make a motion to instruct administration to bring a policy to the next working committee, that would be what should come forward, and I agree with you, we should do that. So I don't want to step on your toes. I'm just hoping to bring some clarity. If you made the motion to have an instruct administration to bring some ideas of a policy to our next workshop.
On the mind right now, it would probably be.
Absolutely.
When they say they're gonna bring a whole bunch of other policies back, I just didn't know if it was the appropriate time, but I will make that motion that we ask.
Do you have comments on that? You have time to do that though.
We've got a few in a stack right now that we need to get to work on right away, so we could probably add this.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. All in favor?
In favor.
Okay, carried. Thank you, Counselor. Okay. So now we're to, what time are we,
We can
Andrew?
do 7.3 now. I can introduce it and then I'll hand it over to Craig after.
Okay, so 7.3 is a request for decision, land use bylaw and municipal development plan review, terms of reference, page 42 of the package.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we are looking to, per the strategic planning priorities that council has set, do a major review on both the land use bylaw and the municipal development plan, which are two of our largest bylaws, and they do the majority of the guidance for our planning and development and what our community looks like. So we would, of course, this is a large process. It's our biggest bylaws. It's our biggest process to amend them. So we have a set of terms of reference that Parkland Community Planning has generated as to how we would proceed, and hopefully you had a chance to review that, but Craig will also have a brief presentation here. And one of the key considerations I think council wants to make too is what the public engagement looks like. There's quite a few versions of public engagement in there to do concurrently, but the most key one is in person, doing that sort of town hall style. And we're only proposing to reach out to 4 areas each time we do it right now. And that's mostly based on the cost and time involved. Adding a 5th or 6th would mean we need to bump out several weeks worth of timeline iterations just to fit them in without burning out on the process. So the areas that were identified as preliminary were sort of an Erskine-Stettler, capture those residents in one, Big Valley area, a Bymore Indian area, and a Denelda Red Willow area, trying to minimize the amount of driving that people are doing while getting the most population. So at this point, I would like to hand it over to Craig Teal with Parkland Community Planning Services, just to touch on some of his own points there. Hopefully you can share your screen if you needed to, Craig.
Oh, that worked?
Sorry, it might be on a different screen for me. Yep, we can see your screen.
Welcome, Craig.
Excellent. Yes, good afternoon, Reeve Clark, members of council, administration. Andrew has put me on a kind of a short 8 to 10 minute window here to get through a presentation. So I'm going to try to go through as quick as I can. I am going to be, you do have the full terms of reference in your packages, and of course there's always time for questions as council sees fit. So as Andrew mentioned, it is a large project to update the MDP and the LUB at the same time. And there's probably some benefits in doing that, and that the members of the general public can just come have a conversation about planning in general, and they don't have to worry about which box their particular issue or concern or idea fits in, because we're going to be dealing with high-level policy in addition to detailed regulation for day-to-day development permits on through the land use bylaw at the same time. So our project purpose is to update those 2 key documents. For those that, just a quick refresher, the municipal development plan is the big blueprint for the county in terms of where do we want to be in the next 25 to 30 years, and the series of policies and how we plan to get there. And then the land use bylaw picks up with much more detail on that, as people want to do things with their individual properties, what kind of regulations are in place to make sure that we're heading towards the direction that our MDP establishes. So to do that, one of the purposes of the project is to get lots of community input and thoughts into what they would like their community to be in that future horizon. It does also mean that we're going to try to ensure that the two documents are trying to anticipate future issues that may come up over that time period. Make sure they reflect changes in legislation, they're up to date in that respect. Make sure that they're definitely heading in the same direction, they're consistent with each other. And while the large sizable documents try to do as best we can to define the clear role between the MDP and the LUB and make them user-friendly and accessible so people can follow what both documents are trying to say. It has been 10 years since the two documents have been up to date. That's not, it's kind of par for the course in my experience. So we theoretically talk about the 5 to 7 year review period, but it takes quite a bit of effort to get these documents underway. So most likely the next version we're setting will also have to pass the test for the next 8 to 10 year period. One of our key items that we need set up for the process is a steering committee. That too is spoken to in the materials in your agenda package. That group should consist of council and volunteers, we would suggest, from the community, those that are interested to get different perspectives around the table. And their primary role is to provide some guidance on the overall schedule and pace, assist in facilitating public engagement, getting the feedback in from the residents, reviewing various drafts, giving feedback on those, and at the end of the day, ultimately giving a recommendation back to council on the two documents on the form and the materials that should be accepted and adopted for the community. We have purposely set the recruitment aside so that could be worked on by council administration over the course of the next couple of months. We don't need this committee right away to get launched in the project, and I'll try to bring that back up in the schedule on the next couple of slides. The next points, I think it's 2 pages in your agenda materials, talk about the public engagement communication tools, and those will be distributed and used repetitiously throughout the process. And basically, we're going to use ones that have proven to be successful in the past. That includes using the website, using social media to get people to the website as our main source of information, still doing advertising, using your community screens, giving people a person that they can call to email or call or come visit and chat and share their ideas. A series of community workshops, which fortunately if the regulations are changing, will most likely be very much in person. At various stages, we'll be using open houses and public meetings. So a combination of come in, look at display boards, talk one-on-one with a presentation maybe later in the meeting, an opportunity for questions, discussion between steering committee members, planning team members, and the residents and attendees. While it's worked pretty well through COVID, some people may still like the idea of the virtual meetings. So we've tried to incorporate those opportunities for people that just can't get away for the evenings that we selected. Maybe they can pop in for a different evening for an hour or two and offer their feedback that way. And then the formal referrals to various agencies and organizations that the county interacts with on planning issues. And throughout the process, our input collection tools will be basically a variety. It could be a verbal conversation, it could be an email, it could be a submit comment through the website, it could be the traditional comment forms. So we'll be using those tools throughout the process to collect the feedback and input as we go through. So what does the process look like? The next 2 slides break the process down into basically 6 major phases. Phase 1 is getting the project ready to go up off the ground. So getting the website, getting the word out about what we're going to be up to, how people can participate initially, and what they can expect in terms of participation opportunities later on in the process. This is also an opportunity for us to blank slate ask people what they think about the 2 documents, looking at the current MDP and the LUB, and putting forward their ideas and suggestions for us to take into account as we go through the remaining steps of the process. It also is an opportunity for us to collect some background information to get a kind of a snapshot on what's happened over the last 10 years or so, what's changed dramatically that may influence some of our planning choices and decisions. And that will come from the ratepayers that wish to interact in the process, to comments from referral agencies, to trends that we see in the background, to comments from administration and steering committee members. And you can see at the tail end of that phase 1, we have the initial steering committee meeting. To phase 2 is going out to the community and basically asking them, what would you like the county to be like in, say, 25 or 30 years? What kind of place do you want to live in? What kind of place do you want your kids and your grandkids to grow up in? And that's meant to be facilitated through a series of community workshops in the 4 locations that Andrew has mentioned, to hopefully be somewhat interactive, in person, giving people a chance to hear what their neighbors have to say, and a little bit of a back and forth dialogue on issues, and getting a little bit of information about planning and enabling us as a project team to explore and dig deeper into some of their ideas and suggestions. From that, we would turn our attention to drafting a vision and some principles that would be reviewed by the steering committee, then put back out to the committee for further review. And 2C in phase 2 is where we start shaping up big changes in policies and ideas that may touch on the MDP and the LUB. So there could be a series of briefing option papers that look at a particular issue and say, here's what the issue is, here are the possible policy choices. And then we would use that as a tool for discussions around the steering committee and going out to the public to see what the thoughts and feelings are around that. And given the size of the documents, the number of issues, I'm not sure how many of options briefing papers will be at this stage. That could be anywhere from 20 to 25 in a pack of 2 to 4 page papers for people to review and comment on. The steering committee, when we get to 2D, will have probably a longer meeting to work through a series of briefing papers and look at drafts. So at this stage, I'm not sure how many meetings that will take, and that is part of the role of the steering committee, is to make sure the process moves through in a timely fashion, but not so fast that we don't adequately cover materials and items. So there could be some adjustments in the schedule depending on the steering committee's workload. Phases 3 and 4 involve first additional community review. Once we've got that draft vision and ideas in those form of briefing papers and option papers, putting it all back out to the public, and this time holding open houses and public meetings to give people a chance to react to ideas that are shaping up that may go into the draft plan later on, and give their feedback and will tell us whether or not we're heading in the right direction, or if there's issues and concerns that they still have, or further research that we need to undertake. Once we collect that information, the steering committee again will assemble and review that, maybe one meeting, maybe 2 meetings. That part we'll have to play by ear. And once we have some direction from those ideas, that would be moving into phase 4. The planning group would be able to start writing the draft MDP document and the full draft land use bylaw. It looks easy when you just put it up on paper, but there's a lot of work involved in both of those 2 sentences. And then most likely a series of meetings as we go through each document in detail with the steering committee to make sure that they're comfortable with the draft and ready to go out to phase 5, which comes up on the next slide. Additional community review, at this time looking at a draft document in full, not ideas on the various papers, but to be able to look at the administrative sections of the land use bylaw, specifics of a set MDP policy, and provide the feedback. We'll use some of the same tools that we used in the previous session. There's a phase, a series of open houses and workshops, availability on the website, availability to pop into a Zoom meeting and ask questions. So a whole host of ways for people to interact and engage with the process. And finally, a series of committee meetings to see if there's any reactions or revisions they want to do to the 2 draft documents based on the input received. And then they have to formulate their main recommendation about council adopting the 2 documents. At that point, going into phase 6, all of the council members on the steering committee change hats and now are back to the formal council table as we go through the traditional adoption process that I think some of you are very familiar with in terms of the land use bylaw amendments. We have to put a bylaw on the table for first reading, advertise for a public hearing, and then host a public hearing on 2 bylaws, one for the MDP and one for the land use bylaw. And at this point, our guess is the volume will be such that we may end up splitting that into 2 public hearings. And that's why you do see a little bit more time to allow that to go from a series of either back-to-back council meetings or set council meetings for just the public hearing purposes. All told, Reeve Clark, we anticipate that going through the process, it's been very quickly outlined and is in your agenda package, will take the better part of 2 years. There's a fair amount of background research to note review, check the ideas and back again. We're hopeful by the startup and background that we can take care of that by June of 22, with the idea that come June 2022 and September 2022, we're out there engaging with the public about their desired future for the county of Stettler. Given the changes to COVID restrictions, if it's possible to move quicker, that June date may be able to slide up to May. That's again a little bit of a playing it by ear to see how quickly we get the background material ready and if the steering committee is assembled and ready to go with that kind of schedule. Phase 3, we're anticipating at least 2 rounds of public review or discussion in the 2020 year, bumping hopefully not too much into the Christmas for that. Early into January and through April of 2023, drafting the full plans and the LUB and reviewing it with the steering committee to enable us to come May of 2023, we're back out to the community for your action and response to those drafts, and then taking it for consideration later on that same year with the in target date so far for complete council adoption, probably in the October of 2023 timeframe. So with that, Reeve Clark, I'd be happy to field any questions anyone may have about the process.
Thank you, Craig. Do we have, Councilor Nyberg has his hands up. Any other questions?
Craig James here. Just a couple of questions. In the consultation portion of that, is there a spot where we will consult with our member partner municipalities as well? We border 4 or 5 different municipalities, including the ones that were within our area as well.
Reeve Clark, through you to Councilor Nyberg, there's a couple of key points where that particular audience will be engaged. Definitely in the initial outset, we do typically let people know that we're preparing a plan, and that's so if they have any comments and thoughts they want to send in, they can. Later, when we get into, as we do our internal drafts and visioning, they're still welcome, but they may not be responding particularly to those kind of referrals. Definitely by the time we have a full draft document, it's time to give that out to those neighbors to say, here's what we're thinking about adopting, because now they can see more fully where the project is heading and will hopefully more likely provide feedback during that. And certainly during the public hearing component, we have those mandatory circulations. So there's at least those 3 key, but they're also welcome to participate like anyone else throughout all steps of the process.
Okay. Councilor Nyberg has another question.
Craig, so where do you see, you've pushed out this plan as far as what cost on that side. What about costs as far as our staff time, internal staff time? Is there any estimate on that? With these typical public engagements, our staff seems to be somewhat of the, I would say, the lead point on that. Is that how this is to roll out? Or I'm just trying to get at an overall budget. Like what you proposed here is your guys' cost, but then there is going to be costs occurred by our staff, I'm sure. But do you have any estimate on that?
Reeve Clark, through you to Councilor Nyberg. Unfortunately, I don't have a fixed number, but yes, you are quite correct. The level of effort that you're going to see in this project is not just Craig and Annika and our technician or Scott from PCPS. Staff time will go into it as well. And if you were to tally that up, yes, it would be a much more sizable project. In terms of the public engagements, when we get actually into the event, I do expect assistance from key county staff to be available as a resource person, with PCPS still being the facilitator and the main lead for presentations and running those events. But there is a staff component that goes with this. I'm not sure if Yvette or Andrew want to add to that response. Or
I can only echo Craig's comments. We haven't accounted for it. We don't typically project cost administrative time.
Are we prepared for it? Like, is this, I mean, this is a 2-year project going forward. Our staff is already at that point where we're kind of strained to the limit, as we would say, and a number of other issues that are going forward. I hope that we are anticipating and planning into, Nikki can only be split into 3 people at any given time. I'm not sure we can stretch her into 4. It's like that old toy, Mr. Stretch.
There is a good reason it's scheduled for 2 years.
Okay.
And that is to allow the appropriate time to get things done. And, facilitating those things, fortunately, are some of the smaller pieces of the puzzle. And we have great faith in our working relationship with PCPS and how our time commitments have evolved in previous similar projects. So, yes, we're comfortable, maybe begrudgingly, but comfortable.
Never be comfortable, Andrew.
It is one of the things that I noticed in my last 4 years is that there is a lot of things that need to be looked at thoroughly through that. So I think 2 years is.
Thank you.
Should give us time. Yeah, any other questions to Craig?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, CEO Cassidy.
Parkland did such a wonderful job for us, especially with public consultation. with the Buffalo Lake South Shore Area Structure Plan. So staff was involved with that too. And there were times when it took quite a bit of time, but it's just part of our jobs. And the MDP and the LUB they are so old and outdated that they're starting to cause us grief. So it definitely needs to be done. I've been told by other municipalities that we should get an award for the public consultation that Craig led on the Buffalo Lake Area Structure Plan, but we just don't have time to apply for the award, so.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart?
This is just a question, I guess, to administration. And I agree this is long overdue that we need these updates, but it is going to come at quite a bill. I was just wondering, is there any outside funding available on something like this?
There used to be a grant through the ACP program for MDPs and LUBs, but now it has to be regional. So if we partnered like we are doing with the town, we did get the ACP grant for it. If we were to partner with, I don't know, the County of Painters to do this, then we would be eligible for the grant. But because we're single sourcing it, we're not. They changed the criteria of it a year ago.
And it doesn't make much sense for us to partner with them because there's so little involvement with any of our member municipalities. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Craig. Okay.
Welcome, Your Worship, or Dave Clark.
That's a mayor thing.
Yeah.
We do need a motion to accept the terms of reference with Parkland.
Councillor Nyberg?
I will give you that said motion, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions, concerns? All in favor? Carried. Heard you, Dave. Yep.
And I won't insult you by calling you your worship.
Yeah, don't call me your worship.
Worship.
Yeah.
Your worship.
And then you're to 7.6.
Yes, we are.
Second water line hookup. 7.6, request for decision water line hookup, page 85 of the package.
All right, so this is another water line hookup request. This one's a little different because they're not right on the line. So these guys are 3 to 4 kilometers away, depending on which direction you would take. So that's quite a significant cost at roughly $185,000 going down an undeveloped road allowance. We didn't get too deep into the particulars of what that cost would be just to bring it to council. Typically, these requests get deferred to future planning sessions. But you can see approximately where they are, either off this following 601, heading east, or heading straight south on 40-2, which would be the slightly shorter route. And this is in the same area as that last request, so north of town, just off of Highway 56.
And it's just one hookup?
Yeah, just one hookup there, and not a lot of opportunity. If we took the longer route, you might be able to pick up a few more farms. So that's where we like to defer these to the planning session so that we can rally interest in a whole area.
So this isn't, sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Go ahead.
So this is a new request, one that hasn't been in the queue for a while?
Right.
Okay,
This is
so
effectively to add it to the queue.
Mr. Chairman, I would give you the motion that we add this to the queue in our planning session to go forward. Unfortunately, we have a number of people ahead of this individual that our funds that we've allocated to water will have to go to first.
Questions, concerns? Councillor McKay?
Yeah, I usually let you reply with the possibilities to do with that, so that would give them time maybe to get these other 4 or 5 on board, so we can do it as one project instead of going back all the time redoing it. So I agree with that. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Favor.
Carried. 7.7, request for decision, regrazing leases advertisement, page 88 of the package.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quentin is here to go over the grazing leases with you. It looks like you got a monster.
The paper map is going to be digitized once I cut it in half and scan it. Their scanner's not big enough.
So in the package, you'll see that there are 16 parcels of land. What isn't in the package, it didn't make it in, but there's a sheet that shows all county lands that the county has. There's 267 parcels of land. That includes hamlets in Bymore, Indiang, Nevis, Erskine, nuisance lands, lagoons, landfills, MRs, ERs, Carlisle Estates, Jewel Estates, as well as lands purchased for mining gravel. So because it doesn't make sense to advertise 2.88 acres for someone to put 1.3 cows on, I've omitted those from the advertisement. So I went with pieces. I think the smallest portion was a 67 acre parcel, which I rarely advertised in the past, but we've had some interest, so I included that. That's the smallest. Everything else is 140 to 160 acres. You'll see a few, like for example, parcel 2 is actually 2 parcels of land put together. It's the east half of 31. Because of the way it's situated, you can't break them apart and have 2 pieces. It makes sense to have it as 1 parcel. Same with parcel 5, the northwest of 22. That's what's known as the new Collins pit. So it's 2 quarters of land, but we're going to fence out a piece of land, 47.2 acres, unless things change a bit, for the purpose of mining gravel. And then fencing off, there is some cropland to come out of there that I have to seed to get it into grass. So we'll get acres into that before this actually gets advertised, but that's being crunched on as we speak. A little history. We have, since I've been here, I've kind of organized things that all lands come for bid at the same time, and for the ease of the land or the ratepayer that actually bids on it, we wanted to go with a 5-year term, so that if somebody wanted to purchase extra livestock for the purpose of grazing, it makes sense. It's a better business plan. Not sure how much more you want me to explain on it. Any questions?
Just when you're done explaining, stated. I think that's good. Do we have any questions for Quinn? Councilor McKay?
I do have one. The annual revenue of almost $32,000, is that for all the parcels that have been included in the past years, or is that just for 1 parcel over the 5-year period?
No, that is annually from the 16 parcels. So I guess I should note the one change, the Bridges pit, which is the southeast of 3520. We removed that one from grazing because we're going to do a lot more reclamation work in the next future. Won't really make sense to graze. That parcel came out, but the Collins pit northwest of 22 went in. So we're going to have the same number of parcels. That's just to give you a ballpark idea, because this year, everybody always asks, well, what's the going rate? Well, there's some years that the bids are really, really low, like 80 cents per head per day. The next time it's flooring at $2.15 per head per day. Neither one makes sense to me, but that's what someone bid. So what that number was the last 5-year, 1 year worth of revenue off of those 16 parcels of land.
Councilor Silver?
I'll give you the motion that we advertise these lands for lease for the 5-year period. And in the print advertising portion, the Stellar Independent and the East Central Review, are those both used?
Yep, they'll be on our website, and then the ECA and the Stellar Independent.
Sounds good. Any other questions? Councilor,
Do you Facebook that out too?
Yeah, usually anything that goes on our website usually gets sent out in a link on Facebook as well.
Okay. No, it seems to be a little bit more of a watched system situation.
When is the deadline? Or is there deadlines in here? Or is that-
So, yeah, what's gonna happen is I'll advertise this. I don't remember my deadline. March 15 or 31st, I'll have all tenders in. That way it gives me time to put a package together of the bids for the April meeting. And then we can turn around and notify the winning bidders, because typically they'll come in between May 1 and May 15 to sign up to start grazing in July.
Councilor McKay?
Is that the 1st of July? And how long of a period do we usually have?
July 1 to October 1.
Okay, so a little different than Ducks Unlimited has. There's outward, because there's 15th to September 30th, so.
And so ours was July 15 to October 15, but because we coincide our lands with the Pheasant Festival,
Yeah.
which is really close to October 15, we pull out October 1, so we bumped ahead 15 days to allow that same 3-month period.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion. I'll ask the question. All in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you, Councilor Grover. 7.8, request, thank you, Glenn. 7.8, request for decision to appoint Deputy Director of Emergency Management, page 90 of the package.
It's pretty straightforward, Mr. Chairman, but Andrew, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I can speak briefly. Hopefully you all had a chance at lunch to meet Mr. Calabena, our newest Protective Services Officer. He comes to us from the Alberta Sheriffs and has had quite a long career already. So we're happy to have him on board, and this is a formality to make him the second deputy director. Aislinn Rule is a deputy director, and then of course Clint Syme is our director of emergency management.
Councilor Member?
Mr. Chairman, I would make that motion for sure, but I think Kyle needs to get a different haircut or change his mask up or something, because they look almost identical when they have their mask on.
Yeah, him and Aislinn are a good match.
We won't carry that one.
No, I'm not taking that one.
Any questions? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? In favor? Okay, carried. Okay, 8 is unfinished business. 8.1 memo, Scholar Road update, response to delegation, page 91 of the package.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This memo, I wanted to go to council just to keep you up to date on what's been going on. After the last meeting, we did go down and do some work on the Scholar Road. Plus, we've refunded one of the oils that was paid that Sterling then didn't pay for. And we went back and looked for traffic counts, which were 2010, 2011, and we will have the traffic counters out there this spring as you requested.
Questions? Just CEO Cassidy? Dave? Councilor Grover?
Yeah, the count, I don't think it's changed much since, I don't think you're gonna find much change, and that's not enough change to get any grounding or any pavement down there, but they were told that, but yeah, with the new count, they'll be better, but I doubt it.
Thank you, Councilor Grover. Any other questions? Okay. Councilor Silver?
I was just gonna say, I'm glad the staff took an immediate look at it and started the process to address it.
No, and if we do that other staff or that other vehicle count, it will.
Well, that's what we have to do to get the numbers.
Meant to do, yeah.
I think that was a really quick turnaround following the delegation concern.
Councilor Jendrick?
We did our due diligence on there. We went back to see what it was, and on the short notice, yes, it's gonna take some time in order to get a traffic count back onto there. In 2010, I believe the oil patch was moving fairly well down there. So like I can only suggest on what's going to happen in there. But let's see what happens with our next count. It's do document it.
Councilor Nyberg?
And Mr. Chairman, I think also there is in that traffic count, we've got 100 trucks on the north and I think 57 on the south is telling what's happening there, right? So you're looking at 53 trucks that are somewhere along the line coming off that road, not going all the way through. So that is you can tell a little bit of information from what's actually happening, where that traffic is coming from and where it's going to.
That was before we called it too.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So now we'll be able to get a good comparison of that, of what's gonna happen in the future.
Okay.
Carry on.
Pardon me, Councilor Robert?
Quick counter though.
I think we already have that. I'll give you a motion to receive for information, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Robert can do that too if he. You okay with Councilor Robert put that forward?
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Information.
Carried. Okay, 8.2 memo, regraded pit reclamation, page 93 of the package.
Mr. Chairman, Rick, did you want to speak to this?
I can do, I'm familiar with it, so. I suppose everybody's read it already. So what this memo is telling us, Quentin did a little bit of work with the government fellows there and got some feedback and timelines on things. And we're at that position now where we're not being put off anymore with indefinite, we don't know what's happening. We're getting put off with, 1 to 3 year kind of timeframes because we're only processing 1, 2, maybe 3 a year of our type of reclamation certificates. And they can easily get bumped by other higher priority ones is where the conversation went. So we have discussed this type of thing before as it relates to reclamation certificates, the fact that the county pays rent on a lot of these lands and we can't get the certificates without an inspection. And now the government is cutting back on their inspectors, no real plans to add more or replace the current one that's just recently moved on. So it leaves us in a bit of a tight spot as far as being able to move forward. So the past conversations, and it's been going on for a few years now, have been very much, how do we contact or push forward politically, potentially, to look for other solutions. And my feeling has always been we should be advertising municipalities, possibly through RMA and a motion there, that we want to be a trusted partner in this thing, and we need another way of getting this stuff moving so we can carry on with reclamation certificates and closing off our liabilities for rent. And, it could be letters to the minister, it could be, what do you call those things? Into RMA there for the upcoming convention. Resolution, that's the word, sorry, went blank. But I think we really need to take that time and hit it hard because we just can't wait. If they're only producing 2, 3, 4 a year, I don't know what they're doing with the other 50 weeks in a year. I really don't. So whether it's pushing for an alternative where our people, if they're qualified, can do it, whether we hire a consultant to do it or whatever, there's got to be a better way of getting this stuff moving, and we got to find it.
I totally support what Rick is saying. We've been at this and trying to get a meeting with Minister Nixon to address this. Can't get one. I would think that we should start with maybe requesting a meeting with MLA Horner and then Minister of Agriculture, see if he can get us a meeting with Mr. Nixon, because this is crazy. We've tried the consultant route. They wouldn't take it. They wouldn't sign off on it. Yeah, they've got our hands totally tied.
Mr. Chairman, all kidding aside, maybe if we put a bottle of Jameson on the table, we could get them to the table. But that's a political statement, absolutely. We have been down this road way too long. I'm going to use a line from Dave. I've been here too long. Since I've been on council, this has been a going concern. It's not just this minister, but it just seems that it has completely stalled at this minister. I am totally in favor of bringing a resolution forward to RMA. Write a letter both to the Premier, to Nate, and to Minister Nixon. And I think it needs to be, I don't think letters do any good. I mean, we complain that Mr. Kenny sends letters to Ottawa and it doesn't do any good, but I mean, I think it needs to be a strongly worded letter. I think the time of us being politically nice about this has come to an end. They talk about moving Alberta forward and getting us into a position to have some recovery on our economy. We need to do this for us, for our farmers, for the people within our community to move us forward and get some of the economy going. So my motion would be that we write a strongly worded letter to all three of those. Point out that we have not been able to get that minister meeting, CCRMA about it, and then also work on putting a resolution forward to have something to put a little more pressure from the RMA. In the conversations with RMA, we can't be the only ones out there that are having this grief. So let's find somebody else that's out there that's having somebody easy to give us a second on that.
I think mine will be a second motion now, so I'll let discussion and voting go on this motion first, and then I'll make another related motion.
Okay, discussion on this, Councillor Gender?
I find it very disturbing on something like this. When I come here, Christ, there was one piece of land up at Denell that was already, 6-8 years behind then, that should have been reclaimed then. In the oil patch, when I worked in there, Christ, like you would get it 2 years later, you sign off on it 2 years later. You have to pay a first year to get the crop growing. The second year, you're supposed to sign off on it, unless there's any discrepancies in there. I find whoever's dragging their feet in there is absolutely...
They're going to blame COVID.
I need not COVID.
I know.
I'd like to talk to you, Larry.
Councillor Stevens, and then Councillor Grover.
We do have our new Alberta environment rep coming in. I'm not trying to take away from your motion. I support that, but is it appropriate to bring this up from our new rep and try and see if she can point us in any directions as well? Kind of attack it from both fronts, if you will.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Her hands are tied, but it's good that it's there.
Councillor Grover?
Yeah, we've been bringing this up, and I bring it up like when I go to convention and that, if you see the right minister or one that's even close, or his deputy minister, which sometimes you get to talk to. We've been doing this for years and years and years, but that one bit has to be way over 8 years. That has to be close to 20 years. 20 years, $2,500 a year is $50,000. It's a financial thing after a while here. And the time that our staff spend trying to get these leases in shape so that we can get them wrote off, and you do 3 or 4 a year, I think that's just totally bullshit. And I'll agree with Mr. Gender on the oil field there. They clean it up, do it, and it's done. And you, after 2 years or 3 years, you get no money for it at all. So why would a lease on a gravel pit that, we got grass growing all over them, and we've done everything to get it. So I think we need to put pressure on them, our MLA too. We'll hammer him again, but I think we gotta get more serious about this. Thank you.
Councillor Gender?
When do we pay out these non-certified? What time of the year?
January.
They've already been paid?
I'm not sure if checks are gone, but they should be probably going pretty quickly.
And I make a motion that we don't send them out.
Except you're punishing the landowner for something that's not their fault. I mean, if the county was in that position and we were due money, I would be jumping up and down to get it. So
I'm not in favor of that.
That's not, because it's not their issue. It's
yeah.
I'm more in the point of, okay, let them get a little bit kerfuffled and say they can get on in the case of environment.
We represent them. We're supposed to be their representative. If I was that ratepayer, I would come to my counselor at coffee, and we would have a stern talking about what contracts are about. That'd be you, Paul, just saying. Notice I said I'll buy coffee.
Okay, is there any other discussion on that? We do have the motion on the table from Councilor Nyberg. All in favor? You said in favor, Councilor Grover?
Just so Marlene, you're clear on that? What's that?
Nate.
Premier Kenny and
Nixon.
Nixon.
You avoided us up at the legislature.
But, yeah, well.
What about Nate?
About who?
Nate?
Yeah, no, his name was on the tape.
Okay.
Yeah. Councilor Stewart?
I'd like to make a motion, in addition to sending a resolution to RMA and the letters to the ministers, I would like to see administration, see if it's possible to set up a meeting with our MLA in person to discuss this, and also reach out one more time to the Environment Ministry. And in that letter, it would be different from the other letter. I think in that letter, it would maybe notify them that of the plan to do a resolution and stuff. And if they know the wheels are turning, maybe it might prompt them to meet before it goes public or whatever. I mean, I know it sounds like the COVID restrictions for meeting and stuff in person are lifting more all the time. So maybe if we do that request for an in-person meeting with Environment one more time, I mean, can't hurt. As I think in person, sometimes you do get better results than by letters.
Councilor Nyberg?
Who's the House Whip right now? Is Nixon the House Whip?
Nixon was, for sure. I don't know if he's changed.
But we should actually bring it to the whip's attention that this is not, like, we've made this request a lot. This isn't something that should just be shuffled off. If he is the whip, we should remind him that he's the whip and that he should be making, if he's telling everybody else what to do, he should tell himself what to do. And I'm just frustrated with this absolutely, it's nothing. We're getting
And I have asked about the meeting with him numerous times to Nate or to Minister Horner, and I think this letter and another meeting with him has to reinforce that again. It's been numerous times I've talked about when are you going to get this meeting set up for us? And just the latest when he became the ag minister. So I think we need to push this hard, and because it not only costs us a lot of money, but I mean, there's certain ones where people are still watering cattle. It's not just costing us the rental, it's costing us to try and fix it all over again. Fix something that we shouldn't be fixing. So. Yeah. So we have a motion on the table for Councilor Stewart.
Yeah.
Any questions back to that? All in favor?
Favor.
Carried. Okay, item 10, bylaws. 10.1 bylaw 1674-22, procedural bylaw for second and third reading. Page 94 of the package.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the same bylaw you saw last month. We opened it up and advertised it for public comment. No comments been received up till today. So we brought forward the same bylaw and it's ready for second and third reading if council so wishes.
I'll give you a second.
Thank you, Councilor Grover. Any questions, concerns? Councilor Stevens?
Go ahead. Give me 1 second.
Councilor Stewart?
Yeah, I just had a question. Basically, is it too late to tweak this bylaw once we get to these readings? Okay, I was just looking at the library appointments. Now, there's no provision in the Libraries Act, in that act, for alternates to for a public library board or intermunicipal library board like we have in Stettler. There is for regional boards, which Parkland is, but not for a local type board. So we do have alternates, I think, in this procedural bylaw. I've seen that at home. I didn't find my page here yet. This is where we took appointments, right? Oh, yeah, there we go. Oh, yeah, it's on page 96. Yeah, 2.7.
Okay, so an amending motion then would be to strike one alternate from 2.7.10. One second.
That amendment?
Okay, do we need to address it, go through all the questions?
Yeah, let's go through everything first.
I'm good. You're good? Business good. Okay, Counselor Gender?
On page 97, okay, the regional health professionals, 2.8.7, do we only have one on there at the moment?
Yes.
How about the 2.8.9? Says that we go down to one. We've had two in there.
But I do have an amendment here for that, so if we could bring that forward as an amended motion as well. So 2.8.9.1 would be amended to read, the community shall have 2 counselors and 1 alternate appointed by the council of the county of Stellar.
Also on page 98, 2.9.2.1. This is for the rural crime. Like right at the moment we have 2. Are we going down to 1 on that one also?
Is that one so that's how the terms of reference currently read. But if we want to amend it, here's the best place to do that, so. Was that one that we had 2 different counselors and, or was it 1 counselor and Reed is at Fitzhugh? No.
That's all it was.
Okay.
It was one before and it's. Yeah.
Personally, I have no problems on going down to 1 in order to cut some costs on it. I have no problems with it. That's typically the best way to do it.
Yeah. Okay. We'll leave it as is.
There's one.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions or notes? So Counselor Grover, are you giving it second readings? There's those 3 amendments. You're good with them?
I'm good with them.
Okay. Well, good. Okay. Okay, we've got a motion for second reading. All in favor?
Favor.
Carried. Counselor Stillberg?
I'll move 3rd reading.
Any questions, concerns? Call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. Okay, 10.2 bylaw 1675-22, general traffic bylaw for first, second, and possibly third reading, page 115.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is just a minor revision to correct the penalty schedule to align it with the offenses. It was just nearly a typo, basically. That took us, it indicated under the schedule that it was section 1019 that was the unauthorized use of engine retarder brakes within a hamlet. That should actually be 10.22. That is the only change being proposed to this bylaw so that we can actually issue the tickets and have them hold up.
Counselor Gender?
At the moment, we can issue warnings.
Oh yeah, we can issue warnings. It's still an offense technically. If we really wanted to proceed somebody because they're really belligerent and we didn't have it, it means we don't have a prescribed penalty right now, which would mean a mandatory court appearance. But that over a noise issue is a little steep because that means we definitely have to send our peace officers to court, and there's no chance of that just being.
At the end of today, it is law, and they can reinforce it.
That's correct.
Counselor Gender?
First reading, please.
Counselor Stevens?
I just have one clarification I'd like to get, if that's possible. 6.5 and 6.6, it's regarding parking in residential area. They seem to contradict each other, and that just hoping to get a clarification.
That's where you take the schedule and back all the way up to 6.5 in the main portion. So you shall not park any trailer, whether it's designated for occupancy by persons or not, in any residential area, regardless of if it's attached to a vehicle or not. And then the second is a recreational vehicle, not a trailer for carrying goods is 6.5 and recreational vehicle is 6.6.
So you couldn't, in our hamlets, for example, you couldn't park an RV for an afternoon to load it in front of your house?
You can, per 6.6, it's got 120 hours.
Oh, okay.
Is your limit. You can't park your construction trailer on the street under 6.5.
You can't park a trailer, whether it's designed for occupancy or not.
Yeah, like
And that's where the confusion
the more
was.
specific in a bylaw or any legislation, the more specific always overrides the more general.
Okay, and one other clarification, can we look at the back schedule 1 for speed limits? I think we might be missing a couple of exceptions in there. For example, it says that Botha is all 50 kilometers, and I believe there's a school zone in there.
Botha has to have a more thorough review. And a school zone is always posted, there's a separate clause elsewhere for school zones being signed. So that's, again, the more specific overrides the general.
And what we did, if I could, Mr. Chairman, also, we changed all our school zones to playground zones here a year ago or 2 years ago, which it was a year-round situation, because those typically in the small hamlets, that is a playground zone, whether the school's on or not. So we did a blanket coverage of that.
Also too, Botha we do, because I thought Botha was 40 kilometers now.
So, yeah, so Botha and Gatsby, especially in our truck routes we identified as well. We haven't had a chance to go through those yet to make sure that they're consistent with the bylaw, but they were at least at one point signed entirely regular or informational signs rather than regulatory signs. So the yellow versus the white.
Some we don't have any signs right now.
Right.
So we need to get that up. I know this should override it then, but I mean.
Yeah, and that's that.
Signs up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, any other questions?
And just to point out, it's 11.7 where the CAO designates the school zones and playground zones. So that's where those come from.
Yeah, we didn't do that shit. Kind of in our direction.
Did you have two things to say? You had both hands up? Okay, we got a first reading by Councilor Gender. All in favor?
Favor.
Okay. Councilor McKay, you had your hand up?
I'll move that we give it second reading.
Any questions, concerns? All in favor?
Favor.
Carried. Councilor Stulberg?
I make a motion that we move to the third reading.
All in favor?
Favor.
Carried. Better read. Okay. And third reading? Councilor Stulberg?
I'll move third reading.
Questions, concerns, last chance, all in favor, or Councilor Stevens?
I'd just like to stress that I have gotten phone calls about this, and part of the new rule is enforcement, so I would like to stress that we instruct our peace officers to monitor that in the short term. Like
For speed limits or for trailers parked? or for-
the Jake break. Yeah, that's the new one that's being brought in, so.
I can contest that they are actually doing it. Last time I was through Erskine, I saw them throw their lights on and pull over a truck and wag their finger quite heavily at them. Hopefully the message gets across.
They'll pay a fine.
Maybe we have a motion on the table for third, all in favor?
Favor.
Carried.
Mr. Chairman, could I propose that we just take a quick comfort break for 5 minutes?
Is everybody in favor? Comfort break? Yeah.
Favor.
See you, told you.
So we move into reports. 11.1, Chief Administrative Officer's Report. Any questions on that? Council Gender.
I guess I was just looking on page 147, there's that one bridge, 06965. Then I turned over to the other page and just looked at what is really holding it up. I guess the question is there much traffic utilizing that bridge?
I think that's the one we closed, and it's a land access bridge, so that is now barricaded off.
So that's when you're gonna make an access just land? Like
No,
through it?
that's what all it was doing, so we've closed it. The water level's down since Brad inspected it, so now we can see that where he couldn't see it before.
Okay.
So when the guys doing the load evaluation went out, because we had it load rated, they saw that and said, we're closing this bridge right now. So
Does the farmer have any other access to it, a little longer round or anything?
we've got a long way to go around, because it's that big coulee up Deneld area, but we got to deal with it one way or the other. Just right now, we can't let anything go on it, because it could easily slip off, so.
So how do you close it then?
We just barricade it.
If they take the barricades out, their problem? They go through?
Signs on the road and barricades. We talked to Brad about putting something a little harder on there. I don't know if he's had a chance to go back up there and have a look, but it was immediately just get our regular barricades up there. We did talk to the landowner that's right next to it though, with his house there. At least the hired hands there, and they were gonna let them know. I don't think they've called us yet to talk to us about it. But the local people up there that would be using it are aware. So,
Whose area is it again?
please.
But, I guess the only problem with barricades, I do know when we closed that road north of the Gadsby landfill a couple of years ago, every time I drove up there, somebody pushed barricades in the ditch. And we're going through on it. So if we're serious about blocking something off, I think we gotta get more serious with what we're putting down, or just say that they removed it, so our liability's lesser, but accept that people are gonna go across it.
Right now, you can't get to it to the north. Brad was gonna work on a solution for nailing stuff up on it, so it's a hard barricade. I'm just not sure we got there yet, so I haven't asked him in weeks, so. Things have been busy over there.
Okay, any other questions on the report? Councilor Stewart?
Not really a question, but it's a quick comment on the brushing. I think it starts on page 150 and goes on, the brushing projects. I was just gonna say, that looks really good. It certainly enhances the safety of the roads. And I think those projects look excellent. That's a great job on those.
I can interject into that as well, depending on your point of view. The brushing looks awesome or it looks terrible, but our road right now, scraper hit the ground this morning. We're moving dirt in February. So that thing's getting fixed right up, ditches, back sloping.
Oh, wow, yeah, good for you. No, that looks great.
Okay. Councilor Gender, you had your hand up.
That was my point, is this the one that we had all the complaints about? Were they complaining about taking out excessive trees or?
Yeah, so traditionally, we get a lot of service requests on this road in its current condition, and it requires piloting to get a grader through there. The guys that do farm up there also have to run pilot vehicles to get their tractors to land and whatnot, so that's been a lot of the issues we've had. But since we started doing work on it, the other issues of we don't want the brush cleared, we don't like the brush piles, we don't want open land, we like the privacy of them coming out. But unfortunately, we're in a situation where you got farmers wanting land access all around you and don't want trees on their farmland, and your acreage is in the middle of all that. You know, they're governing the needs of the road, whatnot, working with us to get the road safe. So it's a balancing act. We have met with the acreage owners up there and have reached a general accord on most fronts and are working with them to get things sorted out, so.
In other words, we want to have don't want to have the trees taken out, but if there's an accident, it's our responsibility.
Well, if you want to paraphrase it that way, it really just comes down to the general beautification of the area. It's really difficult for somebody to picture what it's going to look like when we're in the middle of tearing it apart. That said, I think once everything's back together, sloped up nice, and opportunity, I guess, to plant trees on your own property if you want different protection and whatnot. One landowner to the very north end is actually moving a bunch of his trees for us this spring with a big tree spade that are on our property. So quite easy to work with, so. Just depending, right?
Counselor Stevens?
The complaints vary depending on the person, and I don't want to confuse the two. There has been some concerns from all sides on this particular road. Unfortunately, this road has multiple issues. And it's good that we're addressing it. The sight lines, that is extremely hilly, and there's spots where the trees were. They were the ditch. They were branches sticking into the shoulder. So when you combine a hilly, windy road, that treed in, like sight lines were very bad. And there is spots where it was underdeveloped, drainage issues. If we did not address this, not only did we have the safety concern, but we had a maintenance nightmare because there wasn't proper drainage. And I support the fact that we're going in here and working on this road. It was time.
And once again, the project we're doing up there, or have been doing for a couple of years slowly, has two primary goals. One of them is the sight lines, the other one is getting drainage off the top of the road and underneath the road. Because a lot of these back slopes just come straight onto the road. When we get a heavy rain, all the gravel's gone. That's when all the service requests start. So we've already done a little bit of this in other areas on our way up there. And we had the opportunity to work with a couple of guys that wanted us to go hard and work with us on it. So we're going hard at this particular mile and a bit anyways, so. And once again, we're moving dirt in February. I'm just tickled. It's dry, like you drop the ripper in this stuff, it resists for a little bit and then poof, down she goes. Just dry.
Hopefully you can't do that next spring.
Too wet. Yeah.
Those that are concerned about removing too many trees, might be helpful to remind them that we have a shelter belt program, and that is an option they can look into on their property.
A bunch of this land sounds like it's gonna get broken too, so things could change a little bit more from that as well in the near future, so.
Councilor Gender?
I've been hassled this by an awful lot by, why am I taking out so many trees?
Fair enough.
Yes, you have.
Your front teeth are starting to go like a beaver's.
Every time the wind blows.
And his black hat.
Hey. Okay, no, any other questions on CEO report?
Two guys to do the work.
Councilor Stillberg?
I'll give you the motion to move the report.
Okay, all in favor?
Favor.
Carried. 11.2 financial reports, 11.2.1 accounts payable register, 11.2.2 bank reconciliation, December 31st, 2021, page 180 to 186. The package, I'm sure you've all looked through it.
Just one comment, I noticed we're paying a lot of cash.
A lot of what?
Paying out a lot in cash. Oh, that's just, I don't, you.
Straight out of the bank account.
I know how you guys have done it. We are not paying cash, I don't think.
No.
Yeah.
Just
Clarify that point, yes.
Clarify that point. I wanted to make that note.
Councilor Stillberg?
Just, I guess, a clarification on page 186, the bank reconciliation from previous year to the current year, going from 14 million to 17 million. Is that largely on completed projects that some of that money is going to slide over into the 2022 budget?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Councilor Gender?
Move in place.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Favor.
Carried. 11.3 council fee sheets, page 187, starting with 187. Councilor Gender?
Move in place.
Questions, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor?
Favor.
Carried. Council committee reports, we have 11.4.1, the Stettler Public Library, 11.4.2, Stettler FCSS Board Meeting, 11.4.3 RCMP engagement on proposed provincial police, and 11.4.4 Stettler Regional Fire Advisory. Is there any questions or any clarifications from presenters on that? Councilor Silver?
It's in my report, but I'm just going to give a quick shout out to FCSS got a grant from Farm Credit to host mental health and agriculture workshops. And there's one scheduled for in Stettler here at the Jewel Theater on February 24th. It's called Talk, Act, Listen. And it's a program of the Do More Agricultural Foundation, which when we were at the Provincial Agricultural Conference in Edmonton, in lieu of speaker gifts, all the money went to this foundation for rural or agricultural mental health. So this opportunity is in Stettler for, it's at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's at the Jewel, and the lunch is provided free by G3. So it's a good local workshop, I think. I know everybody's under a lot of stress these days, so it might be a good opportunity for learning how to manage your stress.
Councilor Gender?
I'm just wondering, that's whether you can touch on, say, like the very last point that you have there, FCSS, or the family pancake breakfast.
Well, one of the things in the FCSS mandate is prevention. So in once there's a lot of I guess troubled kids later in life that have some issues. So this is a thing every year we look at some family things to do. So in the past, the family day pancake breakfasts were always hosted in person, and it was one thing for families to do together. Of course, now with COVID, they have to be takeout or whatever. So you can still register and grab your free breakfast for your family and grab them. And this is something that's sponsored by FCSS, and it's being done well by volunteers through FCSS staff, mostly through the Brenda's Cozy Cafe. And in the years that trustees help out, I mean, we've had it in Erskine, and the local trustee helped out there flipping pancakes and things, but it's all done on a volunteer basis.
I'm just kind of wondering, is there maybe a donation bin there that people could possibly?
I guess they're always welcome to donate. It's typically set up free. James, do you know any more further?
I think what you could do if you wanted to is just let them know that you were going to purchase a couple of meals, and whether you take them or don't take them, that's up to you.
No, purchase it free, James.
They're free.
You can, there's donations there, though. I'm not sure how they did that, because there is a.
I think there might be a box, but I mean, like sometimes like when it was in Erskine, I think the Erskine Hutterite colony donated the eggs, and some of the grocery stores do donate some products, and then the FCSS buys products, and
Yeah, I'm still thinking of going to the pancake breakfast as a in-house thing. So yeah, I guess you would there's got to be a donation box there.
There could be, but it's.
Thank you.
Councilor Gay?
I'll move that we accept these as information.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Favor?
Carried. Consent agenda items. There was, did everybody have a chance to go through them? 12.8, just don't know if we should have some conversation on 12.8.
Yes, that one.
It is a letter from Scenic Sands Community Association funding for recreational projects at Buffalo Lake. Go ahead, Councilor Stevens.
If I can start, when I came on to council, there's been some openness, we'll say, to discussing what to do with that municipal reserve fund. In an effort to get me up to date, I reached out to the community association on what they thought their priorities for their community should be. So it was, when I reached out to them, it was in an effort to get me up to speed on what the communities wanted. That's how this letter came in. So they're not making specific requests. It's just a community engagement effort, if that makes sense.
Councilor Evans?
So I think we should take this letter actually and bring it forward for our next strategic plan. That it could be attached to the strategic plan as part of what we're going forward and working with. One thing that I would like to note, I very much, and I am going to scream from the rooftops, the canary in the coal mine, if you were, the very last point is the lapping action, and that there needs to be something along that shore to stop it from continuing to move towards Erskine. It is doing that on a regular basis, and unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people out there that are, we would say, putting their heads in the sand. This is a big issue. It is a huge issue, and unless the people up there and everybody understand that we need to do something, the sooner the better, it will become a very major issue. So I'm glad at least that there is somebody talking about it other than me.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, we have that representative coming from Alberta Environment to the NPC. This is maybe.
Yeah. Sorry, I turned it off.
You turned it off?
Well, the big one, I think the one right between your two sets, right?
No, you just turned it off.
Like if you draw
I struggle with that. It's usually I scream at her or jerk.
I think I'm running, but.
I can't running.
Okay, I'll try this again, sorry. We have the new representative that took over for Bob Shorten coming to the NPC meeting. This might be a topic to start a conversation with them about, because we're not the only ones along the South Shore that are feeling this.
That's makes sense, dude.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would like to add that the other community associations are going to be getting what they think is their priorities. So I don't think we want to, as much as I want to act on getting the ball rolling, I don't want to jump to any conclusions until we have a little more feedback from the other groups.
I don't think at this table we've jumped. It's been this.
Yeah, no, I just
discussion. So
I just wanted to clarify my intentions, I guess.
One thing I'd like to note too, nowhere in there is wastewater an issue. We better start talking about that as well too. These community associations need to be part of that discussion. Unfortunately, we're in an emergency situation and I don't think they've got it just yet. But I'll tell you what, if anybody's ever had your sewer back up, you know how important it is that it needs to work.
Okay, Councilor Silver.
And I think it'd be a good idea when we get comments or letters like this to put them in the file with the municipal or the South Shore Municipal. It's the fund we have up there, the $1 million fund, whatever. Once we develop policies or further things, how this money should be spent. I mean, these things, if they were in that file, it'd be good to refer to, especially the first three. I mean, it would be good to be in that file.
Okay. Any other questions on any of our consent agenda items?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just give you a quick update on the pancake breakfast. They are actually thinking of moving it now since the new restrictions have changed. So please stay tuned to that and they'll let you know. If they move it to a venue that you can actually sit down, they will have a spot for you to donate.
Okay. Consent agenda items, any other questions, comments? Gonna get a motion to receive them? Councilor Silver? Okay, all in favor?
In favor.
Carried. In camera session. Legal matter. You'll move us in camera, Councilor Nyberg. All in favor? Carried. And who do we need in? We're good, Counselor Stevens?
I'd like to make a motion to instruct administration to bring back a legislative policy regarding our routine road maintenance for review and debate.
Any questions, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor?
Favor.
Carried. Our next meeting is Wednesday, March 9th of 2022, or March 9th, 2022 at 10 a.m. And the last motion Councilor Grover usually gets, so. 15.
Yeah, can we adjourn this meeting?
Okay. Any objections? All in favor?
Carried.
Carried.